Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Leddy. Yo, welcome to So Serious Gaming. Today we're going to be giving you a little manhunt video. As you probably noticed by the title, do not clap in the dark zone. I hate people who clap. Like, it is the most irritating thing that is in the game for me, aside from like shotguns and things like that. Like, it really irritates me when, say, you're the last guy alive and there's like 10 people shooting you and then they stand over your body and clap. Like, 10v1 and you're really gonna clap. Like, come on. So yeah, basically we killed this team that they were rogue. We killed them. We went to the extraction to get some loot out because we had a couple of teals and stuff like that. And as you'll see in a second, look, watch what this guy does. Like, this is the guy that we've just killed with his buddies, and watch what he does. Just why? Why do you feel the need to come up and clap? Like, the clap in his game, it looks so sarcastic. Like, it looks like the character's intentionally like trying to insult you by the way that he claps or something. So yeah, that's the reason for the title. I'm kind of considering doing like maybe like a montage series where people come up to me and clap and I just melt them, and just sort of like little clips like that, just for fun, just for something fun. But I don't know yet. We'll see about that. But what I really wanted to talk about in this video was people have been asking me like why I don't really play to the meta. Why, like, you know, right now the meta is shotguns, you know, and why don't I really play to that? And the reason for it is, when you play to the meta, you limit what you can do, and then when that meta gets nerfed, you've got to put in work to make your different builds and adapt and things like that. And the problem with this meta is the meta is reliant on, especially on console, it's reliant on the aim assist. You know, people are basically running a shotgun. They tap the left trigger, tap the right trigger, tap the left trigger, tap the right trigger, and when they tap the left trigger, the game's mechanics aims for the player. So the person using it doesn't really have to do that much work in order to aim. And the problem there is, people are now getting so used to relying on that aim that when they're using other guns, their aim's kind of not up to scratch as, you know, maybe it used to be, because they don't keep doing it, so they're not used to doing it anymore. And for me, when you limit yourself to the meta and it gets changed, it's harder for you to adapt. Like, I run different builds. Yeah, I use shotguns now and again, mostly for the NPCs, but I do use them occasionally on players. But I always run an SMG. I'll run an M1A. I'll run the shotgun. I've even run ARs in PvP, you know, just to switch it up. I like the variety, and if I can keep the variety going in the things that I use, whatever the meta changes to, if they don't get, you know, if they're unable to get that perfect balance where, you know, you can just have that wide array of different weaponry and different setups being used by everybody, so, you know, there's no such thing as a meta, it is just one whole balanced PvP experience. If they're incapable of doing that, there is always going to be something different. There's always going to be something that stands out in the current meta for the time. And keeping your variety and keeping varied in what you use allows you to adapt as the meta changes easier, if that makes sense, rather than pigeonhole yourself into one specific weapon, one specific setup, and using that setup and relying solely on that setup to do well, and then when it gets nerfed, you're screwed. And I learned the hard way with this. Do you remember before like 1.3 and you had like the crit chance on the weapons and things like that? I was running two sentries and two strikers, and I think it was like some 182 savage gloves and a reckless chest piece. It was something like that anyway, and I solely relied on, I literally played with nothing but that setup on my AUG. That was all I used, 24/7. I literally, everything, once I got that build where I wanted it to, I sold every single piece of gear that I received, unless it was something that I was currently using and it was a better drop than the item that I had at the moment. Then I'd keep it, but I always stuck to that specific setup. And when that meta got nerfed, I literally lost 120,000 in DPS. Like my character got raped when it came out, like with that update. And I had nothing to turn to, and I had the worst time ever playing this game. Now I'm having a bad time playing the game at the moment. Manhunts have been really difficult for me to get on properly because I don't play with shotguns, and we're ending up on full servers where it is literally everybody using a shotgun, and you've got everyone using sentries, and you know, you're running around, you've got 3 sentry marks above your head and 10 shotguns shooting at you and shock turrets going down. And so yeah, I've been having a hard time because I refuse to follow the sheep. You know, I'm not a sheep, I'm a wolf. I do my thing. I've always been that way, and I will, and that's never going to change, you know. But when you pigeonhole yourself like that, you limit what you can do, and you limit what you can change to as well. And I found out the hard way when that update came out. Like, my build was so useless. I went in to try it in PvP, and I went from being able to insta melt people like I did the guy at the start of the clip in this one, to literally doing next to no damage whatsoever on them, because it just didn't hit anywhere near as hard as it used to. Like, that nerf just raped the hell out of me. So I was like, okay, I am never doing that again. When the meta's in a certain state, I am not going to play to that meta. I'm going to give myself the option to. I have Alpha Bridge pieces, I have Sentries pieces, and I have a Beast as Hell shotgun with a God Roll on it. But I hardly use it. I actually enjoy using my shotgun a lot more on my Predator's Mark build. It's just fun. It still hits hard, but it's not your typical shotgun setup. It's something different to what everybody else is using. So that's why I use it on that, because it's still fun, but it's the bleed. I just love making people bleed and watching them squirm. It's just amazing. But playing to the meta, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Okay, in the current state, yes, you're going to do well, because, you know, that's the gun that does the work, that's the build that does the work, or whatever it might be. But once that nerf hits, where do you go from there? If you're not working on other builds, and you're not getting other builds as close to min-max as possible, and then practicing to use those builds effectively, then when the meta comes out, when the change comes out and the meta gets nerfed, then, you know, when people say, such as myself, who have put the time to try and adapt before the meta change, you have to try and adapt after the meta change. So whilst you're adapting, there's people, say like myself and other people that I know about, that are doing the same thing, that have already adapted to using other builds and other weapons and things like that. Now, the thing that really bugs me the most about this is those teams that are running around, there's literally 4 shotguns, and they just charge you and run circles around you up close, and no matter how much you try and distance yourself from them, they just follow you really up, and you can't do anything. You know, there's nothing you can really do. I don't like using shock turrets. I feel so cheap when I use a shock turret and like stick somebody in one spot for long enough for me to melt them when they can't do anything back. Like, I just feel so cheap when I do it. So I try to avoid it, but I will stick a shock turret on if I'm getting shocked. Now, luckily here, like I only got shocked to that once. Their shock turrets weren't really much of an issue. Like, we would tend to take them out before they did anything, or we just moved around the corner. You'll see in a moment the guy comes up and drops a shock turret down, and we go running around the corner, and we just move out the way. So it was kind of like a non-issue. But if I get shocked multiple times, and the reason I have died is because of a shock turret, and I've died because of shock turrets, you know, multiple times, then, you know, I just go, well, screw this. I'm not going to be dealing with that. I'm going to stick a shock turret on. I'm going to fight fire with fire. Screw it. Or we can, if we've got people and we've got the right setup, we stick an immunizer on, because obviously, you know, the immunizer makes a shock turret useless anyway. But I tend to, you know, I have things that I like to use. My build is mostly rolled with pulse damage and the pulse duration and crit chance. You know, it's very heavily aimed towards using a pulse. So I like to use the pulse, and obviously I'm running a vigorous chest piece, so I want to be using booster shot. I love using booster shot. It is amazing. It is so much better than reckless, in my personal opinion. Reckless is a knife edge. Okay, yeah, the damage you deal from reckless is really, really good, But the 10% damage intake, although it's not a major issue, it kind of is at the same time. Because if you think about it, you're running Reckless, right? So you're dealing, is it like 14% more damage to me, but you're going to take 10% more damage from me. Now, if I'm running Booster Shot and I pop my Booster Shot, that instantly counters your damage output. So your damage buff is kind of countered by the damage resistance that Booster Shot gives me. But then I also get my own damage buff off of Booster Shot, and you're already taking 10% extra damage. So you're taking 10% extra damage from your Reckless chest piece, plus you're taking extra damage from me using the Booster Shot. So for me, Vigorous is always going to be the better thing to use. But with that said, what works for me might not work for you. It's all, it's personal opinion. But for me, it's always going to be the Vigorous chest piece that I'm going to use over Reckless. I literally sell every Reckless chest piece I get now, just because I don't feel a need to use it. I love using Vigorous, and Vigorous is really good for your, squad composition as well. If you have at least one person on your team running Booster Shot with a Vigorous chest piece, you've got somebody that can provide the whole team with an overheal. But also he's giving them damage buffs and damage resistance at the same time. And with triage in play, that can be pretty constant as well, if you depending on how often you're using the triage and things like that. So it's really, really helpful. But yeah, I mean, just try and switch it up, because you're pigeonholing yourself. We already know the nerf for shotguns is coming. We don't know in what way, if it's going to be a damage nerf, if it's going to be accuracy nerf, range nerf, a combination of all three. Is it going to be sort of the aim assist being removed, or the sentries not working for shotguns? We don't know what the nerf is going to be, but we do know, Massive have already said that the shotguns are a problem, and we already know that the nerf will come to shotguns. So for me, it is, now is the perfect time for people to start trying to get new builds to turn to, ready for when that nerf hits. Because if you don't, and that is your main build, and that is the only build you have that is like actually fully min-maxed because you felt no need to use anything else because of the current meta, then when this nerf hits, you will be stuck, and you're gonna have a hard time, because you then have to use a nerfed build to do your farming. And if you're farming in the dark zone, you're going to be going up against players that have adapted their builds prior to the nerf, and you're really going to struggle. And again, I found that out the hard way. I had a really hard time when that nerf hit for the strikers, sentries and the org. Like, all three of those items were pivotal to how my build worked and how I'd done the stats on my build. And I was pushing like just over 300k DPS with my org on that build, and I dropped to I think it was about 183k DPS from like just under 310k DPS on it. So it really, really, really hit me hard, did that nerf. So just make sure. I mean, none of us we knew the nerf was coming on those items. We all knew it. I don't think any of us expected the nerfs to be so big. So just remember how big that nerf was and how much it affected people's builds. And just bear that in mind when this nerf comes out, that it could end up being the exact same thing again. So make sure you are trying to work on other builds. By all means, keep using your shotgun builds while you can. You know, that's cool, I completely understand it. But at least make sure that you are trying to get gear and you're trying to get builds set up to where they're at least usable and viable in the dark zone, if that's where you're wanting to go. Because if that nerf hits and it is a super big, hard-hitting nerf, it is really going to hurt you, and it is really going to give you a hard time. And I don't want people getting put off by the fact that their builds have just been absolutely wrecked by the nerf. So yeah, just make sure you're trying to adapt already before the nerf hits, before this change comes, because I don't want people having the same issue I did, because it really sucked. It really put me in a bad place for a couple of weeks, like 2-3 weeks. I was just having a really hard time with the game because of, it was my own fault. I screwed up, and I didn't plan ahead for what I knew was coming, and I paid the price for that. So just make sure that you're trying to get your character ready for when this nerf hits, so you've got something else you can go to. that about wraps it up, guys. I just want to say before this video ends, actually, I want to thank you guys so much for the support. It has been absolutely amazing. We're over 800 subs now. Like, the growth recently has just been out of this world. It really has. It's been humbling. It has really caught me off guard, and I just cannot thank you guys enough. When we hit 1k subs, we've got a t-shirt design being made. That's going to be available for you guys to purchase if you want to. I'll also be doing a giveaway at 1k subs, which is probably going to be a free t-shirt for the winner. Maybe one or two other bits. We will see about that. We'll see what happens when the time comes. But honestly, guys, thank you so much. The support is absolutely amazing, and I cannot thank you enough. That about wraps up this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, if you found the advice helpful, please hit that thumbs up. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about the changes that are coming up, what you think there may be, how you feel like they may affect people, all that kind of stuff. Drop it in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more content in the future. As the channel grows, I'll get more active and start doing daily uploads. Yeah, that about wraps it up, guys. Have a great day. I'll catch you in another video. Peace out.